In 2011, I attended my first ever anime convention. That convention was Anime Crossroads 2011. At the time, it was a super small con, being held in what would become the smallest venue for a convention I've ever attended. 13 years later, and Anime Crossroads has switched venues a few times, undergone quite a few changes, and managed to expand their reach to a new generation of anime fans. But there's one thing that never changed over the years. Anime Crossroads is still undeniably a good time. While it's absolutely grown, I would still consider Anime Crossroads to be a small con. Of course, I don't have access to the exact number of people that attended this year, but it still feels like it's growing year over year, personally. Being a small con means there may be less variety in events over the weekend, but I personally love how intimate and connected the community feels at a con like Crossroads. I was able to meet a lot of people this year, and a lot of them were viewers of this channel, so thanks for saying hi. I really love this sort of vibe compared to running all the way across an event space to try to get from panel to panel. The location gets an 8 out of 10. For the second year in a row, Anime Crossroads was held at the Embassy Suites in Plainfield, Indiana. While this is without a doubt my favorite location Anime Crossroads has ever called home, I do have some issues. The first thing you'll notice is that the con has free and convenient parking right outside the hotel. For obvious reasons, I love this. Surrounding the con, there's also a nice variety of food options. Some are within walking distance, and more are accessible with a very short drive. The hotel and event center itself is a very cozy space. The standout section for me is the hotel lobby. It's a really beautiful area with a lot of space for sitting and hanging out. While I genuinely think this space is the best that Anime Crossroads has ever had, I still just think it's already too small. Anime Crossroads may be a small con, but it's growing fast. On Saturday, hallways got cramped, as other than the hotel lobby, this con is almost entirely a hallway con, and panel rooms filled up very fast. This isn't helped by the fact that pretty much every panel room other than the main events room is very tiny. This is the only point where I have no idea what can be done. It feels like they're already fully utilizing the space. I'm also aware they've had a lot of issues with venues in the past, and it would be nice for them to be able to call this one home for many years to come. I just can't help but be concerned that this is only going to become more of an issue as the anime fan base is currently growing at an unprecedented rate. Organization gets a 9.5 out of 10. For the most part, it was fantastic. Yes, there were some late panels, but there always will be with events like this. Nothing seemed to run so late as to cause any big issues. At least none of the main events anyway. The reason I docked 0.5 since last year is mostly due to registration. For whatever reason, Crossroads has only one line for both at-door registration and pre-reg. I found this strange. I ended up waiting in line for over an hour and a half to get my badge. I was not pre-reg, but if I was, I would have been a bit upset about having to wait in line with the people buying a badge at the door. I always saw not having to wait in that long line as one of the perks of buying online before the event. Not to mention, a lot of cons just mail pre-reg badges nowadays. I would love to see Crossroads do the same. But nitpicking aside, other than a few hours on Friday, they always seem to have the registration pretty much under control with a minimal wait, so maybe I just arrived at the wrong time? The dealer's room gets a 9 out of 10. Last year I said it was perfect, but felt a little too cramped. This year I felt like that issue was fixed. There seemed to be more space between vendors, leading to less congestion overall. I also absolutely loved that they switched the entrance and exit doors from last year. Entering on the backside never made any sense to me. That being said, myself as well as others I talked to about the dealer's room felt there was less variety this year. There were a couple of booths I remember from last year that had vanished. This situation may be a catch-22. If they want more space, they have to have less vendors. If they want more variety, it will lead to less space. In the end, dealer's room quality is easily up for debate, so let me know in the comments if you liked it better this year or not. Personally, I do think more space is probably better, even if it means a little less variety. The game room gets a 9 out of 10. This is without a doubt the biggest improvement compared to last year. Last year's game room was the worst game room I've ever seen at a con. I still gave it a 4, and I have no idea why. I must have been feeling pretty lenient that day. This year, the game room was run by friends of the channel OMG Con, another con I really need to return to, but that's a story for another day. First of all, the game room was in a bigger room than last year, which already helped, but I think the biggest improvement was that they actually had game games. Like all of Crossroads, the game room was limited by the physical dimensions of the room itself, but they managed to fill up pretty much every inch of the room with a nice variety of consoles, and even had Guitar Hero. All cons should have Guitar Hero in their game room. Try to change my mind. You can't. The only thing I would like to see added in the future are arcade games. They had arcade games all the way back in 2011. It seems like not having them is a bit odd when almost every con nowadays seems to prioritize them. Though once again, I have no idea where they'd put them in this current space, so it might be impossible. I should also quickly mention the tabletop gaming area, which was moved from last year and looked significantly improved as well. Overall, great job on the gaming section this year. This was much better. For the first time ever, I'm actually not giving a score for guests because I don't feel qualified to talk about them because I have no idea who they are. Anime Crossroads always seems to only invite 3 voice actors every year. This year, I had no idea who they were, but I think that's just down to the fact that I haven't watched dubs in years. When they were announced at opening ceremonies, the crowd seemed to be pretty excited, so I guess people were into them. I would personally like to see a bigger variety of guests in the future. Maybe some musical talent or other industry guests. Just something to switch it up a bit for people who don't watch dubs. Main events gets a 9.5 out of 10. I honestly felt like the quality of main events improved slightly this year. The drag show was fun last year, but this year I personally enjoyed it even more. The same goes for the masquerade. I liked that they changed announcers this year. Things moved well and I didn't feel that slight cringe that can sometimes accompany these events. One improvement I would love to see is the masquerade being projected onto a screen. Obviously, this increases the budget, but depending on the seat, it can be really hard to see past people's heads all the way up to the stage. And to be honest, this has just become pretty standard recently. Just a small suggestion that I think could help improve things further in the future. Oh, also, of course, the room was too small for these events. Of course, it's normal that not everyone can make it into the masquerade, but this year the line for it was the biggest I've ever seen in A-Cross history. Staff gets a 10 out of 10. I really think Anime Crossroads staff is pretty great. Over the weekend, I saw them delivering information and helping keep the hallways from getting blocked in a clear and concise way without ever coming off as arrogant or aggressive. I've seen so many power-drunk staff members at cons in the past, so I'm very happy to report that this does not seem to be an issue for A-Cross. Well, in my experience at least. Obviously, I didn't get to meet every staff member, but the ones I did meet seemed pretty great. Also, a huge shout out to their social media person. They're super on top of sharing people's posts and keeping people updated throughout the weekend. I legitimately miss their presence when I'm at other cons. The electronic dance party gets a 10 out of 10. I enjoyed the dance party last year, but this year I loved it. They did basically the best thing they could have done. They brought back DJ Tetsuo to host it. I remember going to his dances at Crossroads many years ago, and I gotta say, his sets and the DJs he performed with have only gotten better with time. The sound quality was great, the lights, while still nothing mind-blowing, were absolutely a huge step up. And most importantly, the music was exactly what I like at an anime con. Mixing actual nerd culture sounds and music into the mix is always hugely appreciated at cons. Obviously, this is very subjective, but my group at least thought it was one of the best electronic dance parties in Crossroads history. All things considered, Anime Crossroads 2024 without a doubt felt like a step up over last year. Is it a perfect con? No. But if they continue to put in the work to improve year over year like this, it may get there before you know it. I honestly think most of my issues with the con comes down to the size of the venue, which even for me does hurt to say because I do really like this space in general. At the end of the day, I give Anime Crossroads 2024 a solid 9.5 out of 10, nearly a perfect score, and the convention reviews seal of approval. That being said, please keep in mind I do choose my scores based on the size of the convention. If small cons are something you enjoy, I really think Crossroads is one of the best in the area. Keep your eyes on this con for 2025. You won't want to miss it, and stay nerdy.